Welcome. Thank you for being here. I'm Stephanie West from Appalachian State University, or if you haven't heard, I'm actually in New York City temporarily. I am the current president of the Academy of Leisure Sciences, and I just want to give a really quick introduction. Before I do that, I wanted to say thanks for being here, and that we will not have a formal business meeting at this conference because we had one at NRPA. We're transitioning, so we will have a series of announcements that I hope I can get through in about 10 minutes tomorrow, so a lot of those things will happen then. But I do want to take this time to recognize Rasul and Brooke for their leadership in making sure that this tremendous job, and Rasul took us on 2 years in a row and really put us on the right path, and I have all kinds of data for you tomorrow. It'll be fast. Right now, Rasul wants to introduce our first speaker, and I do want to recognize that we're already off to a big bang. I heard that the pre-conference workshops were a great success, so I'm super happy to be here.
Hey everybody. How's you doing? Good? Yes? That was pretty good. How are you all doing? Okay, so another year in Indianapolis. Welcome back. This year, Brooke, if I'm correct, it's like 170 what-ish? Yeah, up from 124 from last year. There were questions about us being able to sort of pull it off years ago, but clearly this is a thing now. Right? Yeah. So to sort of cement the fact that it's a thing, we wanted to sort of do a little bit something different this year with having 2 keynotes. One, of course, for our opening, and the second for our closing. So kind of before I really introduce Rob more formally, I know we don't know each other. We don't have a long history with each other at all, but I think from just the history of DJing respectively, we both sort of share sort of this, not just a passion for it, but more so how it has changed our lives, right? At least for both of us during the era that we started in, it sort of saved our lives.
Yes, sir.
You know, in a lot of sort of personal ways where it's kind of different for nowadays. A lot of people are picking it up and they're learning something from it, but it's not the sort of same urgency towards it. So let me just give some background about our sort of opening keynote speaker. So who is Rob Swift? Just to give you all context, contrasting or comparing the field of leisure studies to the history of DJs. If we think about Huizinga's discussion of play in 1938, Pieper's publishing of leisure, the basis of culture in 1948, but likely the emergence of the sociology of leisure in the 1970s by de Mazadier, it's comparable to the emergence of Kool Herc on August 11th, 1973, just to give you some context. The simple Isola and Nullinger are what they are to us in the field. They are comparable to whom Grandmaster Flash, Grand Wizard Theodore, or more specifically Jazzy J, are to the art of DJing. So then, Roger Mannel, Diane Somdahl, Doug Cleaver, Carla Henderson's era in the field of leisure studies is the era that produced the late Rock Raider, Mr. Sinister, Total Eclipse, and Rob Swift. So to give you a sense of who he is, especially for, I know Rob Swift has no idea who I just mentioned, but now you have a better sense or appreciation of who is sort of here with us today. Often cited, respected for their contributions, and still makes a performance that enlightens people. So then why is he here? Some more context. Last year I had the honor and subsequent madness of sort of coordinating not only TALS, but the 2017 Critical Ethnic Studies Symposium, which was like the following week of TALS. Don't ask me why I tried to coordinate 2 conferences in 1 year back to back, but I did it. Rob was requested to come and give us a talk, and late that evening provide a performance to the attendees. Only knew of him in his history, as I once saw him and his colleagues in the 1991 performance at the in-store at Virgin Music Store, when there were actually music stores in downtown Chicago. And yes, I just dated myself in 1991. Heard he became ill So we heard about it, and also he just arrived in town. He
I was vomiting.
Yes, it was bad.
In my hotel room.
It was bad, really bad. But he still.
But I made the show.
He did, and dinner. And it's at dinner while having. I think you had like Malanta or something like that. It was something you were drinking with dinner. While sitting at dinner across from each other, and at the end of the table, people referenced how cool or neat, as he introduced himself to all the others that came by, that he greeted, that filled up the room. I kind of rolled my eyes at him, not him, but them, because as our conversation continued for over an hour, despite illness, it was connected to a range of discussions around social issues, personal histories, and the obligation of educators to bring forth something from their students. I was dumbstruck that he was teaching classes of the New School in New York, the legendary progressive bastion of higher education that many of us are aware of, not because he was a DJ, but it was neat, not because it was neat or cool, but because it was a perfect and logical fit for what he was espousing as an educator. I knew he had come back, and to do what he intended to do last year was sort of a plan or discussion that we began to have later that evening. Many of us dropped the term experiential education like it's a shout out to the latest Top 40 song. We all say it, but we may or may not have reduced it to just students experiencing something. But it is truly a philosophy that infuses direct experiences with the appropriate learning content and appropriate environment. To teach outdoor education, you must be in outdoors. To teach events, you must be at or in an event. To teach DJing, you must be in front of turntables. John Dewey in 1938 stated that there is an intimate and necessary relation between the processes of actual experience and education. And this is what you see in the scores of videos of his classes at the New School or his one-on-ones with students from all backgrounds, ethnicities, social classes, and identities. As they learn DJing, they learn about themselves. Most may never DJ again, but all will think about the world at least a tad bit differently because of Rob. It is my honor to introduce to you the legend, Rasul.
Thank you, Rasul. Before I get started, I'd like to send a heartfelt thanks to the university, Indiana University. I really appreciate you guys inviting me down and giving me this opportunity to impart on everyone here my philosophy on this art of DJing. It's a beautiful art. It's been in existence for over 40 years, and it's changed my life immensely. And I hope that by the end of today's keynote speech, you guys will be changed and you'll have a different perspective on the art of DJing, because DJing today, it's so different from the way it was when I was coming up as a young 12-year-old kid watching my dad DJ. So with that, I'm just gonna give you guys some background on who I am and how I got to this point here in front of you guys talking about this art. I am the son of Colombian-born immigrants. My mom and my dad migrated here to America, specifically New York City, in the late 1960s. My dad actually came first and did it the old-fashioned way. Came first, got established, and then sent for my mother and my older brother, who was born in Colombia as well. And they came in the late 1960s. I was born in 1972. I know I don't look it, but I'm 45. And I was born in 1972 in Queens, New York City. At the time, Queens was very, at least the part of Queens that I grew up in, it was very integrated. The neighborhood that my dad chose to live in was heavily populated by Colombian immigrants. And there was also a lot of Asian, Indian, white. It was really mixed, and to this day it still is. And I really appreciate that about my neighborhood, because it impacted and influenced the way I DJ, believe it or not. So in the 70s, growing up in Jackson Heights, Queens was really cool, because 1974, 1975 was when the initial hip-hop renaissance took place And not too far from my building, I lived on 89th Street between 37th Avenue and Roosevelt Avenue. Not too far away from my building, there was a roller skating rink called USA Roller Skating. And at that rink, it was probably 2 train stops away from my house. And at that rink, a lot of the authentic, legendary hip-hop artists would get booked to perform and DJ. I'm talking people like Grandmaster Flash, Jam Master Jay and Run DMC, Fearless 4, Just Ice. These are names that if you Google them, these are people that helped lay the building blocks, so to speak, to hip-hop. I was fortunate enough, being this Queens kid, I'd be 8, 9 years old, walk over the mile or so to the roller skating rink and watch these people perform. So although I was in Queens and hip-hop, as we all know, started in the Bronx, we were able to get a taste of what was happening in the Bronx at this roller skating rink. And that for me was my first experience with what a hip-hop artist does. Gets on stage and shares his passion, his creativity with people in front of them. Now before that though, I was introduced to the art of DJing through my dad. My father, Colombian immigrant, brought his love of salsa music, merengue music, cumbia music. This is the music that's popular in Colombia and all over South America. Brought over his love for those styles of music and would DJ parties that his friends would invite him to or book him to play. So, for example, a friend of his might have been celebrating a daughter's birthday party. He would get hired to DJ the party. And my brother and I would help him pack up all his equipment. He had the state-of-the-art turntables, speakers, microphones, everything you needed to DJ, my dad owned. He bust his ass, excuse my French, to buy the best equipment. My dad worked in a factory, 9 to 5, and you could just, I remember, I'd look at my dad's hands and I could just tell how hard that he worked and to provide for my family and to also facilitate his ability to DJ the right way. So my dad would have my brother and I help him transport his equipment to various locations around the city, and I'd help him set up. My brother would help as well, and then we'd sit there and watch my dad control a room full of people just like this without ever opening his mouth. He did it all by the way he spun music and the style of music that he played. So people might be sitting down, talking. The minute he started playing, people would get up and then walk to the dance floor and start moving their bodies. And that to me was incredible because it was my dad doing it. And he was able to manipulate people through music, and it just fascinated me. It's like my father had a power, and it only came out when he was DJing. And then at home, he was just this man that worked his ass off and provided for us and would take us to the beach every now and then on the weekends or a movie. But then there were these moments where I got to see him affect people, and that made a huge impression on me. And from then on, my dad just became a hero. Now, I had an older brother, and my older brother was a part of that first wave of hip-hop enthusiasts that New York City had in the mid-1970s. My brother came up going to the park jams in the Bronx, watching these DJs, getting his hands on cassette tapes of DJs like Jazzy J, Grandmaster Flash, Grand Wizard Theodore, the founders of this art form that I'm talking to you guys about. And he would sit me down, play the cassette tapes, and then explain to me everything that was happening. Yo, this is Jazzy J. He's cutting this record. He's making it sound this way because he's moving the record like this. He would actually get on the turntables that we had at home. And when my dad wasn't around, he would show me. Yeah, because my dad hated us touching his equipment. He thought we'd break it or something. So when my dad wasn't around, when he was at work, he would get up on the turntables and coax the sound that I was hearing on this cassette tape live in person in front of me.
Rob,
yes.
I think you have to explain to some of these people what a cassette tape is.
Yeah. Because about half of them are probably millennials that don't even know what CDs are, probably. So yeah, I mean, you guys know what cassette tapes is, right? Don't underestimate them, so my brother would coax these sounds that I was hearing on this tape in front of me, live. And it was just like, yo, that is so cool. Because the turntable was not designed for you to scratch it. I mean, the word scratch and record at that time do not go together. You do not want to scratch a record. That's a record that your parents bought that cost them $5, and they don't want to have to go back to the store and buy another record. So do not scratch the record. But this is what my brother was doing, like totally going against the grain, breaking the rules, dominating this record, moving it back and forth, and coaxing this sound that otherwise would not appear if you just let the needle skate across the record as the turntable was intended to be used. So I was just fascinated by my brother's ability to do what these DJs on these cassette tapes were doing. I remember on days off from school, my brother would invite his friends over to our house because, again, we had the state-of-the-art equipment, turntables, mixers, speakers, microphones, tape recorders, everything that you needed to make a tape, we had. But what we didn't have was access to the records that these DJs like Grandmaster Flash, Kool Herc, Africa Bambaataa were using. Why? Because my parents, being Colombian, all they had was salsa, merengue, cumbia. They didn't have the type of songs that I was playing earlier on when you guys were trickling in. R&B, soul, rock, jazz. My dad didn't have that. He wasn't really familiar with that genre. So what my brother would do is he would invite his friends over and he would tell his high school friends, yo, grab your records, your parents' records, bring them over to our house, and we have the equipment, we're gonna just jam. And this would be like on days off from school, President's Day or Memorial Day, whatever. My parents would wake up in the morning, 6 in the morning, be out of the house by 7:30, and by 8:30, his friends would be at our house just jamming, and I'd sit there in the living room and just watch them. And it was fun for me because, again, I was watching my brother now and his friends recreate what I was listening to on these cassette tapes in person, in the flesh. And it was just a blessing for me because today a lot of kids watch hip-hop and experience hip-hop through their phones or on their laptops. I was experiencing it in person, and it was, my brother doing it with his friends. After a few years, I grew tired of watching, and I wanted to take part. And when I was 12 years old, a friend and I stepped to my brother and was like, yo, you gotta teach us how to do this. My boy, Psycho Les. Psycho Les is one half of the Beatnuts. It's a popular hip-hop group from New York City. And Les and I went to junior high school together. We were in the same 6th grade homeroom. He and I met and instantly bonded over hip-hop music. And once I told him that my brother DJed, he was like, yo, we gotta get your brother to teach us. And I remember asking my brother to teach me, and he just took me under his wing right there. And it was nothing for him to teach me because I think, for me, what I'm noticing about this art, all these years of studying it and teaching it myself, there's a secrecy behind it, but if the person that's coming to you is showing a true, authentic, genuine intent to learn and want to add on to the culture, you pass it on. And I think that my brother's showing me a resoluteness that I spent all these years watching him, studying him. I guess he felt as if I earned the right to learn. So he took me and Les under his wing, and taught us all he knew about DJing. Eventually, I learned everything that I could from my brother. Like, he was so good, and I wanted to learn more. So I started reverting back to those cassette tapes that he collected. Beforehand, I wasn't DJing. I wasn't allowed to even touch the turntable, so I would hear the scratches and the back spinning and all of the techniques being performed, but I didn't really understand physically what these DJs were doing and how that would make me feel until my brother started teaching me. And once I learned all my brother had to show me, when I reverted back to these cassette tapes, I knew enough by then to understand how to make sense out of the techniques that these DJs were doing that my brother didn't show me. It was this like weird, innate instinct that was in me, and I think it's because I grew up watching my dad how to DJ, watching my brother how to do it, and I was learning indirectly. So when I started to study these cassette tapes, I started bumping into and discovering other ways of manipulating the turntable that my brother hadn't shown me. I started discovering other songs, music that my brother wasn't up on. The thing about DJing, this specific style of DJing that I'd like to emphasize is that in the late 70s, early 80s, when I started to immerse myself in the culture of hip-hop, you didn't discriminate with regards to the kind of music that you used. So whatever you could get access to, you incorporated as a DJ. So if it was a jazz record, you'd use it, as long as you connected with that jazz record. If it was a rock record, you'd use it, as long as you connected with that rock record. And the parts of these records that DJs like myself connected with were the break parts. The parts where we felt the energy was at its climax. So I'm just going to give you guys a quick example of what I'm talking about with regards to the break part of a record. This song here is the first record that I ever learned how to scratch on. It's a jazz record by Bob James, and it's called Take Me to Mardi Gras. Some of you might recognize it for it being Take Me to Mardi Gras, and then others might recognize it because you heard it sampled by one of your favorite hip-hop artists. Run DMC, Missy Elliott, the list goes on and on. Bob James is one of the most sampled artists in hip-hop history. So here's Take Me to Mardi Gras by Bob James. So as you guys can see, it starts off one way, that there's a specific kind of energy at the beginning of the song, and then it just changes. I was groomed to focus on that break part as a DJ. And the point was to repeat the break part as long as you could, and then swap to the break part of another record. It could be a rock record. It could be a soul record by James Brown. And you would just navigate over, if you were making a mixtape, let's say, you would navigate over a 60-minute, 90-minute cassette tape through the break parts of various records. So now, what I was teaching myself was timing, rhythm, making decisions instinctively without reading a sheet of music. This art form is sort of a bastard art in a way. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I actually mean it in a positive way. And I say that because I learned a technique that was birthed in the streets and by kids that never took classes in music theory, never learned how to play instruments, couldn't read music, but instinctively they understood measures, bars, timing, how to drop. This song, for example, starts on a 3 and. So the and of 3. So it's 1 and 2 and 3 and. Today, DJs, if you give them a song like this and ask them to catch it or repeat the break part over and over again, most likely they're going to drop the 3 and on a 1 because that's what they're taught in DJ schools. But I learned instinctively how to drop on a 3 and. So I'm going to give you guys a quick example of what I mean by dropping on a 3 and. Point is just to keep that break loop. And you add scratches to enhance the experience of listening to the break. And as I'm scratching, I learned how to keep time without necessarily studying music theory. It was just an instinctive ability that I had as a result of studying my dad, DJ, studying my brother, studying the tapes that my brother exposed me to. Eventually, I learned all I could from just studying the tapes, and I began listening to the radio. I started listening to DJs like Chuck Chill Out, Red Alert, and Marley Marl. Marley Marl and Mr. Magic had a show on Friday nights and Saturday nights in New York City on WBLS. Chuck Chill Out and Red Alert had radio shows on 98.7 KISS on Friday and Saturday night. And they would do these mega mixes from 9 p.m. to midnight. And I would just study everything that these DJs were doing, take my allowance money, go to a record shop on a Sunday, buy all the records, or as many as I could that I heard them play. And then Monday through Thursday, I'd teach myself the mixes that these DJs were doing on the radio. And eventually, I learned all I could from them. By now, I'm starting to think, hey, I'm pretty good. Like, I could do everything that Red Alert does. I could do everything that Chill Out does. I could do everything that Marley Marl does. I'm probably one of the best DJs in the world now. Until I discovered the genre that we coin as turntablism. Now this is 1987, 1988, and I'm seeing these DJs, you know, I'm totally dating myself again. So this is when like Betamax and VHS started to like hit the stores. And you could actually get a VHS tape now, or a beta tape of a DJ at a competition like the DMC. The DMC is a competition that's held worldwide, and the finals are held in London. And you have DJs that now compete to see who is the most skilled at manipulating turntables. So whereas DJs like Grandmaster and Theodore, again, who birthed the art of scratching, moving the record back and forth, coaxing this sound out of the turntable, where you had the basic skills coming from the forefathers of this art. These DJs in these battles were actually doing things that were so ahead of what the forefathers were doing that it made me realize, as good as I thought I was, there needs to be a way for me to break through the plateau that I was on and reach the level that these DJs were on. So after studying DJs like Cash Money, Cutmaster Swift from London, I eventually discovered a guy named Steve D. Now, Steve D is considered the father of beat juggling. Beat juggling is a style of DJing that revolves around not just looping the section of a song, but rearranging the drum, the actual drums that you're looping, you're rearranging them. You're changing the order of the drums. So I'm going to give you guys a quick example of what beat juggling is. Okay, so let's just listen to this song together here. This is a song called Impeach the President. Go figure. Sending this one out to Donald Trump. All right, so this is a song called, it literally is called Impeach the President. And let's listen to it together. So you guys have an idea of what the drum sounds, or the sequence. You guys have an idea of what the sequence of the drum pattern is. Now I'm going to rearrange it. So first I'm going to loop it for you so that you could have an understanding sonically of what the sequence of the drums are. Then I'm going to start to rearrange it, and I'm going to freestyle this. This isn't planned. This is all instinct. I'm going to gradually do my best to get a little more complicated. All right, so here we go. So that's an example of what a beat juggle is. You're literally rearranging the drum sounds of a beat. And Steve D is from Harlem, New York City, is the first DJ that I ever saw apply this technique to records. I saw Steve, and I realized as much as I thought I knew, there's still more for me to learn. And I started teaching myself the moves, the patterns of movement that Steve D was applying on turntables. And I thought, okay, again, I'm one of the best DJs in the world. I could do this. I made the decision that I wanted to compete. And a friend of mine, Juju, the other half of the Beat Nuts, was like, Rob, I know you want to compete in these battles. I know how much you love DJing. I'm going to introduce you to one of the neighborhood DJs that I personally think is really dope and probably one of the best DJs in the nation. His name is Dr. Butcher, and he DJs for Cool G Rap. Cool G Rap is a well-respected, legendary rapper from New York City, Corona, Queens. And I was like, sure, I'll go to this dude's house. I'm probably better than him. Take me to his crib. I'd love to take this guy out on his turntables. So we planned a date for me to go to Dr. Butcher's house. I went in with my best rendition of a Steve D routine. I went in there with my best rendition of all the DJs that I studied up until that point. I had all the records that they played on the radio, all the records that they used in the VHS tapes that I saw. And in my head, I thought, as long as I could do what those guys do, and these are the best DJs, these are the DJs that people look up to and think, wow, they're the top echelon of DJing, then I'm right up there with them. So I went to Drew's house, Drew, Dr. Butcher, and I walk in with my records, take them out. He's like, what's up, man? And I'm like, what's up? And in my head, I'm thinking, man, I'm going to take this guy out on his set in front of Juju. Drew's like, yeah, man, get on. I'd love to see what you got. And I get on, and I do my best Steve D. I do my best Cutmaster Swift. I do my best DJ Aladdin. And then I get off. And then he gets on, and he does his best Dr. Butcher and destroys me. And that's when it hit me like, wow, all these years I've been studying these tapes and studying my brother and studying my dad and listening to the radio, and I was under the impression that as long as I could do what the people that I looked up to did, I was good. But I'm just imitating. I'm not as good as I think I am, as long as I'm a carbon copy of someone else. And I remember Dr. Butcher sat me down and he was like, yo, you're really good. Like, it's not easy to sit down and study a cassette tape or a VHS tape and then be able to regurgitate every move that you hear and see these DJs do.
Rob,
yes.
If we can give a second for that to seep in, because I think there's a correlation there with some graduate students and advising.
Yeah.
In terms of the idea of emulation,
totally.
You know,
totally.
Yeah, and just following in the same footsteps, not contributing to the field. There are some relationships here.
Yeah. Well, because the thing is yes, we do learn via imitation, but you're not going to stand out until you personalize that which you're learning. So I remember he sat me down and Drew was like, dude, you're good and I know that you want to compete, but you have to be original. You have to develop your personality as a DJ and stop comparing yourself to what your brother does or what Chuck Chillot does or what Steve D does. Compare yourself to you. And it's sort of cliche and kind of corny, but it wasn't until I started to embrace that mindset that my individual personality started to develop. And thanks to Dr. Butcher's training, he took me under his wing and began mentoring me. Unlike my brother, who physically would take my hand and be like, Rob, grab the record here, move the record back and forth, or this is how you hold the fader. Drew was more of he was just like really cerebral with it. So there were times that I would go to his house and we wouldn't even DJ, we would just sit down and talk about DJing and talk about our passion and love for the art and converse on just what a DJ in Mars probably sounded like. Someone that never touched a turntable, because Drew's whole philosophy was, let's forget everything that we know and let's try to approach today's practice as if we're DJing for the first time and let's just see what happens. So let's not worry about timing. Let's just go nuts and literally just make noise until something clicks. And we would just practice that way. A lot of times we get up and just either move in random ways or choose songs that weren't being used, weren't the typical genres of music that were being used in battles. And gradually, he and I started to create a completely different approach to this art form and to the specific technique that we call beat juggling. In 1991, I entered my first battle through the help of Dr. Butcher. I placed third, and that wasn't good enough for me. I remember walking up on stage, they handed me my prizes, and I threw the prizes right back into the crowd. And I just was not satisfied. I wanted to win. And the very next year, I entered the same battle and won that battle in 1992. And the rest is history. When I was 12 years old and I asked my brother to teach me how to DJ, I didn't have the foresight that this art form would take me to so many different levels of expression. Here I am at a university talking about this art form, and as I hear myself, just telling you guys about my background and how I discovered DJing, I'm kind of laughing inside, to be honest with you, because I remember when I told my dad, hey, I'm considering DJing, like, for real, like, making a living out of this. This is when I graduated Brooke College. And he looked at me and was like, Rob, you're wasting your time with that. Like, go back to school, get your master's. But I knew in my heart that he was wrong, that I wasn't wasting my time. All these years, DJing, more than anything, more than any sport that I played, more than any book that I read, DJing was helping me develop myself. And DJing was helping me figure out a way to create who I was. And I was establishing a connection with my inner self that no other discipline facilitated for me. So I knew it wasn't a waste of time. And here I am at a university speaking in front of a bunch of people that want to learn more and understand about this art form. So I'm going to show my video of my boy Max documenting this. I'm going to show this video to my dad and be like, see, it wasn't a waste of time. Currently, I teach the art of DJing at the New School in New York City. My class is called DJ Skills and Styles, and I teach young people from all walks of life how to DJ, and it's more often than not people that never ever held a piece of vinyl in their hands. So it's funny for me when they walk into the classroom and they're like staring at the equipment like it's from like some capsule that, you know, like they're looking at the turntables like these are like ancient artifacts, and I'm scared to touch them, and they're just like freaked out by it, to be honest with you, because turntables are kind of doofy. They're big and doofy. They're not as sleek as the iPhones that they own. But once they walk into my class and I get them to understand that this turntable is an instrument, if you can perceive it as being an instrument, from then on, once I break through that initial like weirdness towards the turntable, what ends up happening is they start teaching me, believe it or not. Like, I start seeing students doing things that, because they're fresh and they have no real bias towards how things are supposed to sound and how they're supposed to manipulate the record and grab the record and the sound they're supposed to coax, they end up teaching me new things. And I feel that teaching this art, imparting this information on people like yourself, students at the New School, has kept me in it. And each day I wake up with new vigor and a new appreciation for what this art has done for me. I make a living as a DJ. This is what I do to pay the bills. And the truth is, don't tell anyone, Russell, and you guys keep this on the hush, and you know, I'm being paid to come here, but I would have flown here for free and done this. Because the art form is that special to me. And I don't know if we have time. I think we do. I'd like to try to get someone to come up here. Yes, all right, so let's do this. And all right, so then after I'm gonna bring a Mel up, okay? So I'm gonna teach this young lady here. If you could just give us your name.
I'm Catherine Ann.
Catherine Ann? Make some noise for Catherine Ann, yo. All right, cool. Are you ready?
I'm so ready.
Yeah? Awesome. All right, cool. So, Catherine Ann, I'm gonna teach you how to scratch.
Okay.
All right. Scratching is a technique that was created by a guy named Theodore in the Bronx. Theodore was making a mixtape for his high school, actually. At his high school, they would play music in the lunchroom, and his principal asked him to make the school a tape, and he did so. While he was making this tape, he was blasting the music like most teens would at home. His mom storms into the room, yells at him, "Turn that music down. It's too loud." This was a historical moment because as the song was playing, his mom's yelling at him. He brings the volume down of the mixers, holds one record, and starts moving it back and forth while he's listening to his mom yell at him. At the time, he didn't realize what he was doing. This was just all happening at once, and he was just flustered. His mom was yelling at him. Mom walks out of the room, continues making his mixtape, and when he went back to listen to it, he got to the part where his mom stormed in the room and hears himself scratching the record back and forth and was like, what the hell was I doing at that point? Got back on the turntables and started moving the record back and forth and realized people need to hear that. See, when you cue up a sound, just give me a second, guys. When you cue up a sound on the turntables, let's say, here's a classic breakbeat. So this song is called Catch a Groove by Juice. When you cue up a sound, you stop the record and move it backwards to the beginning. And this is what happens in your headphones as you're getting ready to play the next song. So there's a song playing out of the speakers for people. There might be dancing to it, whatever it is. You're queuing up the next song in your headphones, and as you're queuing up, you're moving the record back and forth to get to the front of the sound or the song, and then when you're ready, you drop the song. Now, he heard himself moving, queuing the record back and forth, and wasn't conscious of it until he went back to listen to the tape. And he decided people need to hear this as the music is playing. So we're going to teach you how to scratch a record today. So I'm going to play an instrumental beat. Catherine Ann?
Yes.
All right, Catherine Ann. I'm going to play this drum beat here. All right, so we're going to get a sound right now. We need a sound to scratch. So where are you? Here we go. So we're going to use the sound fresh. Fresh is a generic scratch sound made popular by a guy named Mixer DST on a song called Rocket. This song was a legendary, forward-thinking, progressive jazz song by an artist named Herbie Hancock. And Mixer DST used the fresh sound. So here's what's happening. I'm gonna break this down to you guys right now. So we have this record, right? Now the record has a white mark. It's like a long, sticky thingy, right? and Catherine Ann is going to read that mark like a clock, okay? So right now, the fresh is at 12 o'clock. So when she moves the record, it's going to look like this. Back and forth. She wants to stay true to 12 o'clock. That's where the fresh sound exists. And Catherine Ann is going to put her left hand at 9 o'clock. So her left hand is going to be right in this area as she scratches. All right? And she's going to move the record back and forth. And what I want you to do, Catherine Ann, is you're going to, see, you want to move in an even fashion, right? So, awesome. We're going to do it together. You want to move in an even fashion. So you're going to move forward and back, and it's going to be the same distance. She's a natural at this. All right? So it's going to, yeah. Have you ever done this before? No. All right. Awesome. So she says she washes and cleans a lot. So it's like the Karate Kid over here. Wax on, wax off. All right. So you're going to move the record back and forth. And I love, seriously, I love your form. Because it's even. All right? All right. So, say that again for everyone to hear.
I'm a good student.
No, what did you say about me?
You're a good teacher.
I'm a good teacher. All right, so hold 9 o'clock. Good, good, awesome. Now you're going to move the record back and forth. And remember, you want your movements even. All right, hold on. You're not done. You're not done. Okay, so now she's doing what, have you ever heard someone scratch before?
Yes.
So, like me, you kind of, like, you discovered it from afar watching it. You've never done this physically, but instinctively, you kind of know what to do, all right? Right, okay, so she did a generic scratch. The thing with this art form is you want to personalize the generic scratches, right? Right? So what we're going to do is we're going to figure out different ways we can move the record back and forth to coax a sound that is reflective of how you rhythmically move or hear sound, okay? All right. No, I have faith in her. I'm sure she's gonna kill it. All right. So look, here's what I mean. Here's a generic scratch. All right. Here's me personalizing that generic scratch. So there's no right or wrong. I'm not expecting Catherine Ann to sound like me. I want you to sound like you. Okay? So now be careful. You want to start like about 11:58 when you're about to move the record, and then stop at about right, it's okay. So you want to start at about 11:58. Right? No, the mark. Oh. Yeah, the mark is at 11:58. Your hand is at 9.
Right, okay.
Move forward and stop at about 12:30 and then back to the original start point, which is 11:58. And start off with the generic scratch if you want, and then try to personalize it. Okay. All right? So put your hand at 9. The more towards 9, back a little. All right, that's good. All right, make some noise for Catherine Ann. Let's see what she got for us. Make some noise for Catherine Ann. All right. No, she's not done. She wants to leave, but she's not done. All right, so now what we're gonna do is this. Are you?
I don't know. It's like I wanted to do something with my right hand.
Say that to the crowd.
I wanted to do something with my right hand too. You know?
So I'm glad you said that. So no, that's valid. So depending on which hand you use, you might coax better scratches, right? So I'm a lefty. Well, I'm a lefty when it comes to scratching, but my dominant hand, my right hand, I want on the fader. Okay? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna put you on the right now, and we'll see how you sound on the right. And then we'll decide which hand you like best, and then we're gonna do a quick Q&A. You're gonna be on that set, I'm gonna be on this set, and we're gonna go back and forth. Yes, way. All right, so let's get you here. Someone said good luck in the crowd. She got this. All right. So let's see how Catherine Ann feels on the right turntable now, using the same scratch now on the fresh.
Do I go here? Not there.
Yeah.
I'm at 3, I'm at 9.
Still at 9.
Oh.
Still at 9 o'clock. What do you guys think? Right or left? Right. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So we're gonna put you on this set over here, and I'm gonna play a beat. We got an A here. Big shout out to DJ Metronome for bringing all this equipment. Thank you, sir. All right. So, Catherine Ann, one last thing that I want to explain to you is this. When you finish your scratch, release the record, and then pull back to 12. Super easy. So what she's gonna do is she's gonna scratch and she's gonna put an exclamation point on her phrase by releasing the record, and you're gonna hear the whole sound fresh. Then she needs to pull it back because it's not gonna pull back itself. She's gonna pull it back to the 12 o'clock position, and when I'm done scratching, she'll continue. So you're gonna do this. Then pull back, wait for me to finish, and then start again. You're gonna open the fader when you start scratching. Yep. This is the fader open. When you release it, close it, and then pull back. Alright? So you won't hear. Lastly, there's the fader. This is a lot. This is a lot of stuff. There's a fader. So when Catherine Ann scratches, this fader here needs to be moved to the right side because she's on the right turntable. And when she's done, she's going to close the fader or move it to the left so that she doesn't hear the record being rewound to 12 o'clock. Does that make sense? Yeah. Does that make sense, Catherine? Yes. All right, so give it a shot a cappella style. So your right hand's going to be on the fader, right? Pull back. Good. Good, that's good. That's good. All right, are you ready? All right. No, you're not going to mimic me. You're going to do your own scratches. Yeah, right. Mimicking goes against the rules. All right, so we're just going to have fun up here. We're going to trade. Let's do 2 bars. It's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4. Then 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4. Then yes, 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 yes. That was good. And now, just now, Catherine Ann, you sort of, your hand moved back as you let go of the record. You want to follow through. You want to release with your hand. Yes. And then close the fader before you rewind. Okay? All right, guys. Here goes nothing. No, I believe in you. You ready? All right, let's go. Make some noise for Catherine Ann. some noise for Catherine Ann. The last phrasing of scratching that she gave me was actually really good. Really good. Awesome job. I'm going to take her on the road with me. Thank you. Thank you. That was awesome.
This seems like something that women would be good at. So, why, who are your favorite female DJs? And do you think it's harder for women? And if so, why specifically? Or why do they have a harder time gaining legitimacy in this art form?
Wow. What I've noticed with regards to males and females is females usually when they see the turntables, they start to kind of judge how they sound while they're scratching, whereas men don't care. Like usually a male will get on and start scratching and want to go nuts, right? And then what I'm accustomed to seeing from my female students is they get on and they do one scratch and they're like, is that right? Am I doing it okay? So it's like they judge themselves a little more. But what ends up happening more often than not in my classes is the females over time, whereas the males are just right on it and they're scratching and they're just having fun and coaxing sounds out of the turntable and just loving it. It takes the females a little longer to kind of build a relationship with the turntable, but then over time, the females end up being better than the males. And I'm not saying it to score points with the girls here. It's the truth. And what I think goes into that is women seem to be more expressive, right? So I had one female student, Petra, who I introduced the song "Impeach the President" to them at the beginning of the semester, and I was talking to them about the break part of a record and how DJs would loop the drum sections of the song so that a rapper could rap over this record. By the end of the semester, in her final, Trump had just got elected, and she used this song and created this like collage where it was like conceptually she was scratching phrases and words that ended up turning into this commentary on impeaching Trump, over impeach the president. So that's what I mean by the expressiveness in females that I don't necessarily see in my male students. Like that's mental, deep stuff that like most of the guys don't really take into consideration when they're preparing their finals. So those are the major differences that I see. It's a male-dominated art form though, for the most part. I have a female student now named Shilpa, and she wants to compete, but she doesn't have the technique down. But she comes to my apartment, my home studio, every Wednesday and just soaks up everything that I have to teach her. So hopefully, as a result of seeing more female students like Shilpa and Pearly, and within the next couple of years, we'll see more female DJs. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, guys. Again, I wanna say thank you so much to everyone that came. DJs usually don't talk about this stuff. We're just about, getting lost in our music. And the truth is, a lot of this art doesn't have any real verbiage to it or jargon, and we have to kind of like make it all up in order to explain and teach it. So I hope that this made sense to you guys. And again, Rasul, thank you so much, man. I appreciate you. Metronome, thanks for setting this equipment up. Appreciate you, bro. And thank you to Indiana University. I had a lot of fun. I'll always remember this day, and I can't wait to show this videotape to my dad. Peace out.
That's it for the evening. Please feel free to go out to the reception. Take care.